SSDV, same style, different video. And you're not Jonesy. Here are 19 reasons to watch Dreamcatcher. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is a place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. Thanks so much for checking out this video. There's links in the description to my Stephen King quiz book, to my own fiction, a bunch of other stuff. But more than anything, really appreciate you stopping by, and I hope you enjoy spending the next 10 minutes or so with me chatting about Dreamcatcher. Yep, that's right, Dreamcatcher. We are still in 2003, and we're covering this movie that is considered by many to be a flop, but also has a lot of defenders out there. And it is, of course, the adaptation of the equally divisive 2000 novel by Stephen King, if you hadn't guessed, of course. So in this video, I'm going to give you 19 reasons to watch this movie, and if you're worried about spoilers, don't be. Anything that might spoil a first-time watch of Dreamcatcher, I will cluster, save to the end, and hide behind a spoiler alert, so at that point you can find the timestamp in the description to the outro and just skip ahead to that bit. Now, if you're looking to watch Dreamcatcher, either for the first time or as a rewatch, then you'll be pleased to know it's available in lots of places, including right here on YouTube to rent or buy. Okay, I think we're good to go. Let's get into this, shall we? Here are 19 reasons to watch Dreamcatcher. So my headline reason to watch this is actually that it's better than either you remember or than you've heard about. The first hour in particular is excellent. It's this really intriguing drama about a group of lifelong friends who are taking their annual hunting trip up in the woods in northern Maine. Only this time they're 6 months on from one of the core four almost being killed when he got knocked down by a car. Hey! And anyway, they think they're having their usual lovely time hunting and just bonding and supping beers and all of that kind of stuff. But then something supernatural and otherworldly happens on them and things change quite dramatically. And honestly, the character work here is so good and so strong that by the time you get to the second half of the film, which is where it does come off the rails a bit and it does have some problems, you're so invested in the group of friends and their relationship that it's more than enough to help you power through and overcome the problems of the latter half of the movie. But seriously, the friends at the heart of this, absolutely worth watching. Oh, and even when the shit weasels hit the fan and this film does start to derail and wobble, you're always entertained. The one thing that will never happen to you watching Dreamcatcher is you will never be bored.
Got blown last night.
Good for you.
So in many ways, this is quite a faithful adaptation of the book because both this film and the book suffer along similar lines. The friendship at the heart of it is fantastic, and that is the most compelling part of the story. And it's really interesting to see this group of such well-developed friends put in a totally unreal situation. And it's not a spoiler to say that that unreal situation is aliens, and watching them having to deal with that. But then at the same time, as the movie sort of shambles its way towards its climax, that's where it loses it and starts to get a bit crazy, just like in the book. But at its core, there is something really good here, both about the book and the movie. And if you want to see my 19 reasons to read the book, then do go and check that out. So I said this movie is considered to be a flop, and that's largely because of how it balanced its budget of around $68 million with only bringing in $75 million worldwide. Barely covered their costs. And this had repercussions for its director, Lawrence Kasdan, as well. Despite the fact that he was the writer of The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Raiders of the Lost Ark, a renowned director as well up until this point, after Dreamcatcher, he didn't do another movie for 9 years. Ouch. Or, to be more on brand, fuck me Freddy. So what's the hook here? Well, it's largely the same as the book, and in my original script I went through almost beat by beat this story. But you don't need me to do that. This is Dreamcatcher. This is 4 friends going off to the woods and basically having to save the world. And in order to save the world, they realise they need to bring in their fifth friend, their Dreamcatcher, Duddits, who is a character with learning difficulties and is perhaps even more than he might seem. It's a bonkers story. It starts off as this like classic king friendship story and then just goes crazy. It's got the army involved, and you realise the army have been fighting aliens for years and just haven't told anybody about it, so they're not even surprised that aliens are there. But it's ultimately as normal people in extraordinary situations, and there's aliens that come out of people's assholes. What more do you want? So let's talk about the cast, because it is stacked. This is kind of the reason that so many people see it as a flop, apart from the budget, is that there's so much talent in the cast, and yet people are generally underwhelmed by the film. Anyway, let's start with Damian Lewis, who plays Jonesy, and he's definitely really likeable as our, I guess, lead character. He's also hella annoying when he gets possessed by one of the aliens, and it's not a spoiler really to say that, and to let us know when the alien is talking, he does this like crazy Bond villain English, hyper English accent. Really annoying. And yes, I know Damian Lewis is English, but he, nor any of us, actually talk like that. So playing Henry, we've got Thomas Jane, who is probably the standout among this cast, and he offers this calming, grounded, thoughtful presence that the rest of his friendship group clearly have always looked to. And he's just a dreamboat, isn't he? So Timothy Olyphant plays Pete, and honestly, he is one creepy fucker. Sorry, he just... Ugh. So rounding off the core four of friends, we have Jason Lee playing Beaver, the comic relief, my favourite character here. Great choice of glasses. He's just the man, okay? Let's whiz through a couple more. Tom Sizemore as Owen Underhill is fine, fairly likeable, pretty solid. We've got Eric Keenlyside as the burping, farting Rick, who does the job he needs to do. And then there's Donnie Wahlberg as Duddits, who is... No. Just cast somebody with learning difficulties. It's not that difficult. Lastly on cast though, gotta save a whole reason to mention Morgan Freeman. For a couple of points. Firstly, he's a bad guy, he is unhinged, and it's a very different performance to what you would expect from Morgan Freeman. But second, and most important, those eyebrows. So lastly, before spoilers, and I've touched on this already, but one of the biggest criticisms of this, apart from the money that it didn't really make, was kind of this idea of how can so many talented people in front of and behind the camera, because you've got Lawrence Kasdan directing, you've got William Goldman writing, how can so many talented people make something so bad, or at least underwhelming if we're being kind? And honestly, first time I watched this film, I was probably in agreement with that sentiment. But what I've discovered is that this movie, the same as the book, benefits from a second chance. Like going back and watching this with zero expectations, just wanting to be entertained, I had an absolute blast. This is a bombastic action flick that we don't normally see when we're talking about Stephen King adaptations. And it's fun, it's a ride. Like if you go into this wanting to have fun and to be entertained rather than hoping for another Shawshank or another Green Mile, you're going to be rewarded. You're going to have a lovely time. I really enjoyed going back to it for this channel. And I think if it's been a while since you watched Dreamcatcher, you should go back to it too. And if you've never watched it before and you've just heard all the rumours, then just relax when you go into it and just see it as a silly action flick. Like, yeah, this isn't the best Stephen King adaptation out there, but it's nowhere near the worst either.
SSDD.
Okay, after this point, going to be touching on a few things that might spoil a first time watch, so consider this your spoiler alert, and if you want to bail at this point you can. Just jump to the outro using the timestamp below in the description, but otherwise stick around because I've got a few more reasons for you to watch Dreamcatcher coming right up. So when comparing book and film, it's a pretty faithful adaptation. The big thing that's missing from the page in this book is the sort of subplot of where Jonesy is trying to wrestle back control of his body from Mr. Grey and try to slow him down in his race to the reservoir. So he convinces Mr. Grey to go and eat a load of raw bacon, which then obviously causes him to vomit and slows him down and stuff. It's pretty gross, it's pretty gnarly in the book, but it's also pretty fun. It goes on for way too long in the book, and I can see why they didn't put it in the movie, but at the same time, they should have put it in the movie. So there are a few scenes I want to shout out as being genuinely enjoyable, starting with a couple of creepy ones. So the shot when we see all the animals just walking out of the woods, clearly walking away from something, that was odd, that was effective. And then the arrival of Mr. Grey, like when his shadow just drops over Jonesy and then the camera does the slow monster reveal, genuinely unsettling. Next, probably the most effective part of this movie is where we see Jonesy's brain represented as his memory warehouse and how it's organised and how he can burn memories and do this, that and the other. That was my favourite part of the book, and it worked beautifully on screen as well. However, the best scene in this film, and one of the best scenes in any Stephen King film ever, and arguably one of the greatest moments in cinematic history, is obviously when Henry uses Owen's gun as a phone.
Hello? Jonesy!
I mean, come on. Not much better. As for my favourite line, it's basically any time Jason Lee gets to say, "Fuck me, Freddy," because he puts so much energy and vigour into each one. It's just really enjoyable. Even when he's using it softly, you can tell he's really enjoying it.
This is our 20th year coming out here to Hole in the Wall. And fuck me, Freddy, here's to 20 more.
So, there are plenty of connections to other King works here. Thomas Jane would later go on to be in The Mist in 1922, and at the time of recording, he's supposedly working on an adaptation of From a Buick 8. Who knows? Morgan Freeman was in some little film called The Shawshank Redemption. Michael O'Neill, who pops up in this, he later popped up in an episode of 11/22/63, and we've very recently seen Eric Keenlyside in The Diary of Ellen Rimbauer. And then behind the camera, we've got William Goldman, who wrote this. He also wrote the screenplay for Misery. And of course, this one was released on Castle Rock, who put out a bunch of Stephen King films. When it comes to Easter eggs, Duddits lives at 19 Maple Street, but I think that's the same as the book. Derry gets a mention, and there are some very unsubtle visual nods to Stand By Me. But that's about all I saw. Did you spot anything? Let me know in the comments. And lastly, again, just go into this one wanting a good time, not a serious time. And remember that the heart of this story is friendship. It's these four guys who have known each other forever, and who, they don't know at the time, but this is their last outing together. And they just want to go and hang out, reminisce. They end up having to try and save the world and save themselves. But like, the core of this film is 15 minutes in, when it's the four of them back at their lodge at the Hole in the Wall, and they're just hanging out. They're just having some beers. They're just joshing around, having fun. Just dudes being dudes. That is the essence of this movie. And yes, I am completely ignoring the very end, where for some unfathomable reason they decided to make Duddits actually some Chewbacca looking alien who battles with the main alien to save the day and all of that kind of stuff. Just terrible decision. Just remember the dudes being dudes. Like we then get over the end credits. Beautiful. It's just male bonding at its finest.
Jonesy.
So there we go, 19 reasons to watch Dreamcatcher. Was that SSDD for you, or did you get something different out of it? Let me know. Are you a fan of Dreamcatcher? Has it been a while since you watched it? Do you want to go and rewatch it now? All of those kind of things. Yeah, get involved in the comments. Love to hear from you. And do check out the links in the description to my Stephen King quiz book. There's a quiz on Dreamcatcher, on the movie, and on the book, for example. You can find links to my fiction, to my podcasts that I've done. You can sign up to my newsletter, all of those kind of things. But more than anything, thank you for watching this video, and thank you for sticking around and watching this far. Next time, we're back on a book special. Woo!